I'm Marissa Diandrati at the University of Edinburgh in the School of Health and Social Science, and I'm here for the project Measuring Humanity. Today we've been in the south of Edinburgh, one of 4 communities with challenges who we've been really working with closely during the project for Aspiring Communities, which is funded by the Scottish Government, also with some European funding. And I've been partnering with Bethany, who've actually been going into the field themselves and using an asset-based approach to try and see if we can tackle these bigger questions of inequalities and poverty using asset-based approaches.
So Bethany Christian Trust is a charity which works across Scotland with the aim of ending homelessness in Scotland and really look to deal with the effects of homelessness, so really people who are in crisis, but then also look to prevent homelessness from occurring in the first place.
So today was all about speaking to the practitioners who've been doing the field work in these different areas, and also having a community event in the south of Edinburgh and seeing where we might be able to take this stage 1 funding into stage 2, hopefully, if we are successful.
The Aspiring Communities Fund is a grant from Scottish Government and from European Union, and it's really looking to support and empower communities to come up with community-led solutions and ideas to deal with poverty and inequality.
I'm Colin from Bethany Christian Trust, and we've organised this event really to bring people together from the community to see what's great about this community, how we can build on the great things in Morden, and how we can support people who are going around and doing, using their skills in the community. And we've got some of those skills on display here today. We've got Sue and Joe, who just live next door, and they've agreed to come along and will be serving lunch to us a little bit later. And we've also got the Tronkirk Community Choir here, who are going to be entertaining us with some singing shortly. And so I suppose these are examples of the sort of skills in Morden, and these can seem like very small things, but in actual fact the ability to feed your neighbours and entertain your friends are exactly the sort of skills that we're looking to find out about and support in this community. Around the looming heaven, will ye go, lassie, go? Hey.
How do you define an asset then?
I think it's really quite general. It can be something as simple as being able to sand a floor, being able to cook a pot of soup. It can be looking after children, things that I suppose most of us would consider really small things, but it's actually these things we've found in this process are actually fundamental for bringing community together, bringing people together.
So you've got all these people coming together. Perhaps you found out that this group of people is interested in baking. These guys are into crafts. I'm wanting to understand how you go from that to reducing inequalities, from that to addressing homelessness.
In the model that we're using, one of the most basic things is that people come to value themselves, value what they have to bring to their community. And from that point then of personal empowerment, people are then able to look around and address some of the bigger issues that are facing their community.
I've got these 3 headings, so I thought we could think about what we enjoyed today, and then maybe what we noticed, so thinking about maybe a thought that we had or something that we learned about our community, and then a hope for the future. So maybe there's been a seed today that's been planted of like, oh, that would be a really amazing thing to have here, somewhere else. So it looks like we've really enjoyed the pudding and the choir today, so that's 2 thumbs up for that.
You're kind of gathering all these different insights. You're finding out a bit more about what we would call people's assets, what skills they have, what interests, what passions, their knowledge. What are you doing with this information?
Building up relationships with people and, as Colin was saying, finding out a bit more about them. And then from there, hopefully linking them up with other people who might have that same passions as well. If a couple of them, want to do some arts and crafts, or a few of them enjoy baking or really want to learn something from someone else in the community, then it's a great idea to be able to say, I've just met the person down the road that actually loves baking as well. Would you like to get together with them? And just linking people up in just a very natural way, rather than sometimes having to put on a whole group, but maybe saying, yeah, I found a few other people that are interested in that as well.
I think the ultimate goal for me is seeing people engage with each other, and to realise, to see them experience the process of gaining hope and confidence in themselves, that actually they can have a voice, that what together as a group, a collective, they can have power, and that they can have power to make their circumstances or things around them change.
So at this point, you're kind of, if you like, moving from the individual to the system. Yeah. And so what might be some of these circumstances that some of these people are facing, Colin?
Some of the circumstances that I've come across in the community I work in, some people are living in food poverty, some people are living in fuel poverty, and some people are living in inadequate housing. One of the particular things in my community is that there isn't enough for young people to do. So there's many different circumstances that people have found themselves in that are not of their own making, and that they, if they come together, can have power to either challenge decisions being made on their behalf by other people, or take action themselves to make positive changes in their community.
We've mentioned government and all the rest, but if you had an opportunity to speak directly to them, what would you ask for? What change do you actually want?
There's an awful lot of doing unto. That there are initiatives, there are things that allow them to reach out, but they don't actually hit the mark because that listening hasn't happened, and they haven't actually tapped in to what the local community wants and can help themselves to do. So I think if I was approaching government, I would tell them that they really need to put their money where their mouth is when it comes to a properly coordinated approach to things. And if we're going to encourage GPs to prescribe social activity, then there needs to be that activity that is accessible to the community, rather than sending them off to the Commonwealth pool or wherever.
What you guys are doing is very real for you. You're experiencing some incredible things. I've spoken to you and I've heard some of these stories. What we're interested in always in research and in evidence is, how do you capture it, and how do you document it, and how do you turn that into meaningful data? And so, this process of gathering insights, how do you actually put them down so that they become something that's recorded and used for reporting, for informing policy, for informing practice and research?
At the moment, meeting people and them sharing their stories within the community, whether it's for some people they've been there for many years, and how it's changed and what they want, and just noting that down, and meeting others within the community as well. And we've also been doing asset-based maps as well, physically getting a map of some kind of the community, however it might look, and asking people what they would put on there as assets. I've explained it just as good things in your community.
I remember speaking to you, Colin, when you were giving me a really beautiful example.
An individual I spoke to just shared a very powerful story about how that person had cared for their parent as they passed away, and it was a really powerful moment, but it spoke so much about that person's life and about their experience, and that how that experience had shaped their life, but also given them so much in terms of being able to care for others. And the power of that moment is very difficult, probably impossible to capture in a notebook. So it's a real challenge to try and understand how to convey that sort of information in a report that we're going to be writing. The power of those moments is quite difficult. I think one of the ways I've tried to get around that is by setting up a creative writing group, where some people from the community can come and just explore their life through creative writing. We've had some nice pieces come in from that, which speak a bit more about the experience of people in their own words, what they're facing.
So I think the words that you used when we spoke about this last was that maybe just poetry could capture something that happened in that particular moment. So poetry is as evidence.
It's almost, as probably the only way that could capture it would be something like poetry or something more creative, a piece of art that could convey the sort of power of that person's experience at that time.
So next step for this particular project is we're going to be collating all the different bits of evidence that the practitioners in the 4 different areas in Edinburgh, Dundee and Midlothian have gone about collecting. We're going to see what has actually come about in terms of assets and in terms of where the communities want these particular projects to go. Stage 2 then will apply for the Aspiring Communities Fund with the Scottish Government, and that would actually allow us to go ahead in the communities and conduct those particular projects, actually carry out the action that this particular sort of asset mapping and asset gathering phase has actually been all about. And from my perspective, I'd be going in then and working with these practitioners, hopefully to evaluate the extent to which these approaches have or have not made any difference within the communities and the lives in terms of health, well-being and inequality. So that's next step. So if you are interested in finding out more about the project, check out our website, measuringhumanity.org, or find us on Twitter @measurehumanity.
Get the knowledge.